Welcome, everyone, to the Growing Money with Sean Trace podcast. I've got a really interesting guest with me today, and would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Kole Owen, and I'm the founder of Unburied Talents Financial Coaching and Career Coaching. I'm 22 years old. I live in Johnson City, Tennessee. I have a wife, a kid, a golden retriever, and the beginning of a career job. But a couple years back, when I got married, I discovered how little I knew about personal finance and decided to start digging in. And when I did that, I kind of just got lost down the rabbit hole and realized that there's a ton of young professionals that really don't know really what's going on with personal finance, how to manage their own finances, how simple it can be, and how important it is. And so seeing that gap, I figured I was maybe specifically geared due to my interests to fill it. And so that's why I'm here. I'm hoping to help young professionals discover how to manage their own lives in a way that is effective and is aligned with their goals.
That's awesome. Well, a couple things that are really awesome right there is that you are younger. Like, you're Gen Z, like straight up Gen Z. And The thing is like we think of financial professionals, and at least I know I have this vision of someone who's, I don't know if they're a boomer, but maybe they're Gen X, and they're sitting there, and they have their way of doing things. The reality is that we need more people. Like, whenever I interview people, they're like, if you could give yourself advice financially, what would it be? Like, start investing in my 20s. It's like, well, that's awesome that we now have people that are in their 20s that are like going, yeah, this is important. Let's tell other people in their 20s, because, if you guys can start investing now and spreading the word now, it really helps in the long term. My wife and I did not start saving in our 20s. And now we're sitting there going, well, we can start where we're at. We can start writing our financial ship. But at the same time, we can also start instilling these values in our daughter, who's now 9, so that when she is ready, which we're teaching her now, we're starting now, she can start doing these things herself. But talk to me about that. Do you, being a Gen Z in this field, talk to me a little bit about what you've experienced with that.
Yeah, so honestly, there's not a whole lot of experience yet. I mean, I've really just been talking to friends, people that are in the same life stage as I am, about what I'm learning about. And I guess that's what awesome. Revealed to me such the gap there is that so many of them don't know how to manage their personal finances, or even why they should. So I've come across individuals that, maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't realize that that's even a problem. They have low income jobs, and they could potentially be earning more if they wanted to. I've also come across individuals that graduated from college with a really good degree and found a great job that's, even higher than the median income in the United States, have been working for a few years in their early career. And then I sat down and looked at their bank accounts, and specifically with one guy, he had over $40,000 sitting in his checking account. And now that is better than having a ton of debt, but having $40,000 sitting in your checking account is not an optimized way to use your money. And so, there's specific, lessons to be learned, and specific actions to be taken if you want to manage your finances well. So this is such a great time to be diving into it too as a young professional. There's so many resources like your podcast and tons of other podcasts. And that's how I learned, was all through YouTube and Spotify. And there's tons of books now. There's decades worth of resources that you can be digging into. But the real thing that you need to get down is the motivation and the recognition that there is a gap to be filled, and that this ought to be a priority in your life.
Well, and I think that you're spot on. Like, the information is there. Like, it really is. Like, when I remember when I was coming up, and my friends and I would talk about personal finance at times. Like, is this something we need to talk about? What is this? And then my friend was really big into it. And she's like, oh, you've got to read these books. And I like reading, but when I started reading personal finance books, it was like I felt like I was going to trips to the dentist, like these books weren't interesting, and then I read it and I'm just like, it would just instill fear in me, because I was like, well, this is not where I'm at. But now, you know, you get all of these different types of people that have their message now. And, you know, and like, I wish that Dave Ramsey's works had have been bigger when I was younger, because I was like, dude, like his Total Money Makeover would have been game changing for me. And there's something else that you said there too that was really interesting. Like, you don't know that you don't know. Like the young people, it's like they don't know that they don't know. I remember when I got out of college, I took a couple jobs that I was like, these are going to be hold me over jobs. This is just interesting to do while I build toward my career. Well, that didn't end up being hold me over jobs. Those things lasted, and I'm still, you know, tied to some of those things that I did early in my career. And I'm like, well, hang on. I wish someone had have sat there and said to me, Sean, what you're doing right now is probably what you're going to be doing in 15, 20 years. Like, there's not these, like, you know, you hear some people like, oh, it's just a transition. No, it's not. It lasts, it stays longer, and it builds out. And that wasn't something that anyone ever told to me. With my college major, you know, oh, it's actually really important. Like, here's the crazy thing. I went through a couple majors in university, which is like insane that I changed so many times. Luckily, my parents were faculty, and I didn't come out with big student loans in that degree. I then got them later on when I went back to a graduate degree. But the changes I made, and when I spoke to a college counselor, no one told me. No one talked about the earning potential of that degree. It wasn't even mentioned. It was like, oh yeah,
Yes.
this is a great thing to do.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I mean, that is like the heart of what I would like to tell individuals that are still in college. So I actually see young professionals as anyone from 16 to 29. Like, as soon as you start making that first paycheck, you're a young professional. And a huge demographic of those young professionals are individuals in college.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, there are a good many individuals, perhaps even a lion's share of college students that are going into college without an intentional plan. And the average number of times that an individual changes their majors is like 5 to 7 over the course of their college career. That is an issue. And it's not like one that I'm looking at someone with judgment over. I do understand, but the cost of college is becoming so high that if you do not have an intentional plan for how you're going to get a return on that investment, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And this is another aspect to what you were just mentioning, how you don't even know that you need to know these things. One thing that young professionals, I think, are missing is just that perspective of, you know, my time, my money, my efforts. These are all resources that I'm expending, and I'm supposed to be, to the best of my ability, receiving a return on that investment. And so, I mean, and like I said, this podcast is a great way for people to start to recognize that that's something that they should be thinking about.
One of the holy grails of podcast for personal finance stuff in my mind is the Prof G podcast. Absolutely amazing, and such great information. Now he's got this whole like this whole focus that we're cheating our youth, like we're really setting them back, and that he goes into a lot of detail about how that happens. But one of the things that I think back to was when I was teaching. I still teach at a university. I teach a podcasting class, and my class is very practically driven and focused, because I'm like sitting there going, everything that I'm teaching is on the internet. Like, there's no magic sauce here that I'm bringing. The only thing that I'm bringing is that I'm doing it with them. They're learning it with me. We get to do this together. And that's what's interesting about this class, and what's, you know, I think special. So I had one student that would phone in, like, you know, Zoom, you know, jump on the Google Meet for our class from basketball practice. And, you know, and when I would sit there and I would, you know, I'd be like, everyone needs to have their cameras on so I can see you're here and present and actually learning. And when this kid turned on his camera, I could see people dribbling up and down the court, and he's holding it while, shooting hoops. And I was like, finally, I pulled him aside one day, and he would be really late or not get work done. And I said, what are you doing right now? Like, I want to have this conversation with you. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you taking this class? This is a $3,000 class. This is not cheap. This is $3,000. And I mean, and I'm trying to step up so I can give people, because I felt like, is this fair? Like that this school is charging this for much of my time? I hope so, because I'm trying really hard to teach people how, if you have a podcast, if you have media, you can use that to brand really well so that you move into a position to, you can say, hey, look, I'm this guy, this is the podcast I do, and this is why you should hire me. So I hope that there is value in the classes I'm providing. But if you're just phoning in, like quite literally right there, and not even showing up, and I mean, I'm going to be a little harsh for a second. This was a small school, and the basketball program wasn't great. Not great. They don't win a lot. This is not like we're not talking Duke or some other really high level team. This guy's not focusing on an NBA career. Basketball's not going to be his career calling, And like when I said, like, what are you aiming to do? And he's like, maybe I'll play overseas. And I'm like, reality check, man. Reality check time. Like, you're not going to have that. You're probably going to have something else. And we're cheating people if we don't have these conversations. I mean, some of those conversations can be painful. If my daughter came to me and said, I want to be a sumo wrestler, I'm going to look at her and say, that's probably not going to happen. Like, right. Maybe you could look at what other strengths you really love martial arts. Well, we could talk about a career in MMA, though I'm going to push against that, because a lot of the MMA fighters that I know, and I know quite a few, have horrible finances and are dealing with, traumatic brain injury. So even though it's a fun thing to study, I wouldn't recommend going into it as a career.
Yeah.
But we don't have these we don't have these direct conversations. We don't have these difficult conversations that we need to be having.
Well, I'll take this a step further as well. So you mentioned a class in podcasting, which is kind of like along the same lines as media and communication.
Yeah.
With a career field like that, there's a couple of things. Number one, super attractive. I mean, those jobs are sick. I mean, being a podcaster would be awesome. Being on a TV show would be awesome. Being a movie director would be awesome. That means super high competition. That means that you're against the creme de la creme of individuals that have been podcasting, TV directing, and acting since they were 3 years old. Okay?
Yeah.
So you need to be the creme de la creme. You need to be the 0.001%. If you're not that person, then you're not going to make good money. You're going to make way below average money, and you're going to be working really hard to make that way below average money. And I forgot my second point, but perhaps that first point.
No, it's a solid first point.
I mean, and I want people to understand as well that when you are attending college, if you're going to be going for a degree that is not specifically applicable to a trade or to a market trend or to a specific gap in the economy that you recognize and you can fill, then to your point, you need to be putting everything in to that education to get the best grades possible and to learn and know about as many people as you can. The networking aspect of that is really significant, specifically in something like media and communications, where knowing people is going to be perhaps one of the most valuable resources for moving up in that career trajectory. So
100%.
the idea of, and I really want to make this point, the idea of you only live once type mentality going into college. And I recognize how attractive that is, and I assure you that it seems as appealing to me as it does anyone else. But in the long run, it's going to be detrimental, because
you know what I'm living in a developing country, and one of the things here, like, I think that a lot of the world has, first world problems. And one of the biggest first world problems is a mindset. I don't know how, and I tell my daughter, my wife and I lean into my daughter on this all the time. Money doesn't buy happiness. Really? Like, really? Like, really? Okay, maybe money itself doesn't buy happiness. But if I don't have money and I can't afford food, well, I'm not going to be happy. If I don't have money and I can't afford basic clothes, I'm not going to be happy. Money can't buy happiness, but money can buy me that trip to Bali. And that trip to Bali, I promise you, is going to make me feel better. Money can't buy happiness, but money can make sure that my daughter goes to a good school. That's going to make me happy. Money can't buy happiness itself, but money can sure make my life easier. And one of the things that we're not emphasizing is that I told my daughter this: you can study anything you want. You can have any career you want within reason. But you better learn. I'm going to teach you how to make money at it and teach you how to succeed at it, because so often we don't have that. I went through, and I have a podcast I do for my old graduate school that I'm still finishing my degree. And it's interesting. It's for acupuncture and Eastern medicine. Okay. Now, not a very mainstream field, and a field that if you're going into it, like, you sure better like it and really enjoy it. One of the cool things is it's more AI proof than a lot of jobs, because I don't see robots taking that over anytime soon. Augmented, making it better, but not taking over.
Well, they did do
but one of the
surgery
interesting
for a
things,
while ago, so just be careful.
right. Everything else, though. One of the things that's interesting is I have a couple friends that are graduates. One of them is working as a barista. And I'm not hating on baristas. That is an art. The coffee, making good coffee, having a coffee shop is an art. Okay. But I have another friend who is an acupuncturist that has her own clinic in Ohio, I believe it is. She's got 40 people working for her. She decided that she was going to pick a blue market, not jump into a red market in like Los Angeles or someplace where it's absolutely saturated with people, like you were talking about. She jumped into a blue market, an area where there was nobody doing this service, no one doing holistic health, and she's crushing it, absolutely crushing it. She's got 2 clinics, 40 employees. She's crushing it. And she wasn't the person that I guarantee everyone at my school would look at and say, she's going to be the one. She struggled. She had a hard time, and she worked her butt off. But you know what? Now she's the successful one. And again, it's like picking the right career is important, but also having the right mindset. And it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of reminds me. So there's a traditional Japanese idea. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation probably, but I really like the idea, so I'm just going to go for it. It's called the Ikigai, and it's composed
You were close. You were close. Ikigai.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so it's composed of 4 different concepts. Number 1 is you need to find something that you're passionate about, something that you really enjoy, something that you're skilled at, something that people needs to fulfill a need in the society, and it also has to be something people are willing to pay for. And if you can find those 4 things and actually unite them, then you have a really fantastic career potential for you. I was actually just doing this, conceptual drill with my youth group that I help out with a couple weeks ago, where I helped them come up with these 4 things. I mean, it's a super useful idea to just evaluate who you are, what are your passions, what are you skilled at, what do people need, and what are they willing to pay you for it. And that might be acupuncture. That might be podcasting. I'm a scientist, so it might be being a scientist. It might be financial coaching, because that's what I'm trying to break into. When you find that, that is something that you should go for. But
Lean in on.
you cannot miss out on that fourth one. I think that's the point you're trying to drive home. There needs to be an earning potential there.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a great hobby, but it's
Yep.
not a job. And hobbies
And
are awesome. I love hobbies. I'm a hobbyist myself. I love rock climbing. I'm never going to make money rock climbing, but I will spend so much time and effort in it. It's going to be great. But I'm going to do something else to make me money so I can provide for my family.
this podcast at this time is still not generating me revenue, and I have a sales funnel idea that I'm working on, but right now it's something that I'm putting in. I think my podcasts look good compared to a lot of them out there, and people come on because it looks professional and I know what I'm doing. Well, that's because I'm a video editor. Like I've done video production for the past 20 years. I know how to make things look good, and so it's like, but yet I put in a lot of work without reward at the beginning. And if I was just leaning into this, certainly I believe and know that this can and will make money, and I'm laying the foundation, just like building a good house. But you also have to understand, like, sometimes with your ikigai, if it's something that you really want to do, you have to wait. You have to build it. You have to put in that time, that energy. But the most important thing is you got to make money. And if you're not, what are you doing? And there's a certain point in time where you have to cut your losses, and that's tough to say. But if you can figure out a way to monetize it, I think it's so important. And I think that's just the conversation that we're not having. And with Ikigai, I absolutely love Ikigai because I think that for so much of what we're doing in our lives, you have to find that purpose. And I think I'm glad that you brought it up because I think that that's kind of, and like going back to that student, if that student that I had that was in the basketball court, you know what? If basketball and sharing his love for basketball is his ikigai, then he needs to lean in on it and like not do it 50%. Tell me, you know what, teacher, I'm going to drop this class because my basketball practice is important. All right, man, that's the dedication that I'm looking for. That's what I'm talking about. And, and if whatever you're doing, put yourself into it. Put your heart into it and figure out how you can make money with it. I want to dive into another question for you about one of the things too, that I've been taking some classes. I love Coursera, and it was MOOC classes. I'm doing all these certificates. I have a monthly subscription to Coursera, and I was like, the only way this makes financial sense is if I am hammering these courses. And so I'm just like 3 hours a day, just pounding these classes out. And I'm doing one class on project management. And there was a really great thing that we looked at on Scrum. And the technique of Scrum, one of the things that you have to think about is you have these client stories that you start working with. You have to think, who are my clients? Who am I creating this product for? Whatever that product might be. If you're making a kid's book, everyone's like, well, I'm making it for kids. Not really. You're making a kid's book just as much you're making it for the parents. So you got to think about, who are the different people that are, and the question you got to ask is, what am I creating of value? And I think that is something that is so important to remember. And for me, when I ask that question for this podcast, I sit there and go, I have to give people financial advice that they can, actionable steps they can take, things that they can put into place. So I'm going to ask you this. Tell me, what are some of your top financial tips, things that you wish you had have learned earlier?
That's a great question. I wish that I would have known about my Roth IRA when I was 16 years old. and when I started working, that I could have started contributing to that. As soon as you start making money, you can open one. It's going to be a custodial, but you can still open one. I say that though, because I know that this is the typical answer, but just starting earlier is so helpful.
Yeah.
Putting as much money to work as possible is key. And I could have not eaten about 400 milkshakes when I was in my teens, and I would have had a lot more money. So that is number one. Number two, for young people, specifically young professionals, learning how to budget. These are all the boring answers, but they're just so true. That's why
that's great answers.
Because learning how to budget's so critical. It is the only way that you're going to feel secure in your spending is by knowing how to do it. And so initially, I recommend that people just get a piece of pen and paper out and they do what's called a zero-based budgeting system. So they start with their income. And when I say income, I mean all your income. Like, go.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have never done this, but go look at one of your pay stubs. And on the top line, it's like what you actually earn. And then there's all the taxes and deductions that are taken out of it. Know how much the government's taking from you. It's going to make you so mad, but just know it because further down the road, you might be able to optimize that. That's not my forte, but like, it's going to make you so mad that you're going to want to pay less taxes. And then go through all of your necessary expenditures. So that's all the stuff that keeps your lights on physically and metaphorically. That's your mortgage or your rent. That's your utilities. That's your food. That's your phone bill. That's your Wi-Fi. All those things that you need to live a comfortable first world life, that we live in the United States. And then after that, it's discretionary expenses. So you want to begin to allocate what is left towards the things that make you happy, towards eating out and your vices and hanging out with friends and stuff. But all those things, they're going to make you feel confident knowing that your money is going precisely where it needs to go, in the way that it needs to go there, and in the magnitudes that you've decided. It's in your hands. It's in your control. And that's so valuable. And then number 3, and this is potentially the most significant for a young professional, building your personal brand is
I love that.
So valuable. This includes so many things. It includes how you walk and how you talk and how you dress, the quality of your work, the way that you present yourself in a crowd, the way that you public speak or don't public speak. Even right now, I'm projecting to you who I am by the way that I speak, by the way I use my hands, by the way that I answer your questions. And I'm doing this in an attempt to convince you and to convince everyone else listening that I'm worthy of their time and attention. That sounds like really selfish and weird.
No,
but that's really
so
important. And I want to let people know there's not necessarily rights and wrongs here. Like, you don't have to use only 5-syllable words and dress in like business casual every day. Like, you can make your personal brand what you want it to be, but you need to really consider, like imagine that 2 people are gossiping about you, not like in a bad way, but just talking about you. What do you want them to be saying to each other about you? And that's what you need to project. Because that's going to be what helps you advance in your career, in your desired career path. Like for someone who is super interested in arts, there is I hate to use the word stereotype because it has so many negative connotations, but there are positive connotations to that too. There's a stereotypical artist, and maybe you want to conform to that so that people, automatically trust you and your expertise, or maybe you want to rebel against that so people think that you're this, kind of vigilante-esque character and they're intrigued by you. Both of those are okay, but you need to know that. You need to establish that. You need to pursue that. And that is, like I said, that's composed of how you act, how you speak, the quality of your work, the style of your work. All those things go into it. And I mean, I think that's how I got the job that I have at such a young age. I jumped like a couple of the typical chemist career rungs because of the way that I projected myself, my interview.
That's awesome.
Super help. I mean, it's great. And the sooner you know that, the sooner you're cognizant of it, the sooner you can start to apply that. And hopefully, it kind of reminds me of Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Hopefully you can begin to influence people, not in a selfish way, not in a malicious way, but simply in a way that helps you navigate, your place in the world and in your communities.
We're all playing a game, whether we want to realize it or not. One of my favorite books is the 48 Laws of Power. And I know that book is looked down upon in a lot of circles, like, oh, it sounds so manipulative. Whether you realize it or not, you're playing the game. You're part of a game. And not everyone around you has great intentions. And, if you can at least understand your place in this game and understanding that, like, coming back on the positive side, building your brand is so important, and working in media, this is something that I've done for years, is I've built brands. And I've seen so many times where people hit rough patches. My wife had this. My wife is a famous singer in Vietnam. And we had, before we got married and had my daughter, we had established, and I had been jumping on and doing her social media early on. And I said, well, let's do this. Let's do these things called vlogs. And this was like way before anyone was doing this. I said, well, just little video stories. And we did it. And people loved it. And I said, well, let's do these mini music videos before anyone was doing these things. Like, oh, you don't need a huge budget. Just grab a camera, go out and sing somewhere. We did it. And when we hit a rough patch after our daughter was born and the shows weren't there and the business wasn't there, the strength of her brand got her other work. And I think that she's had longevity where other people have not in a very volatile field because of the understanding of the power of her brand. And very early on, she was like, I don't feel confident doing this because I am a singer. I said, no. You're more than that. You have this larger brand. We establish more than that. You're a mother. You're a friend. You're a guide for other women around you. And you're someone that people can look to for information, for inspiration. And it was a lifesaver for her when she hit struggling times, when she hit difficult times. And I think that's something that's so important to recognize. And for me, I create this podcast out of necessity because I needed this information. And now I'm learning to love it. I'm learning to love personal finance. I'm learning to love getting this information and writing my ship. It used to be budgeting was this bad word, oh, that means that the pain of seeing how much you're making or not making, Mm-hmm. But the fun is like once you start it, it's like it's this superpower of knowing where your stuff's going. It's like, I'm going to date myself here, but I used to love the going back before the internet and you had to drive a place and you pulled out the maps. And, you'd sit there and you'd look, and it wasn't like there was this fun voice popping on your phone going, in 300 meters, turn right, or 300 feet, turn right. No, it was like, whoa, dude, where are we going here? So we're going from here to here. And I think this is the 580. And then we go here. And you had to plan it. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the most important things is sometimes you made a misturn. Sometimes you went the wrong way. And at that point in time, you had to pull over, get off the freeway, and find a gas station and go, dude, where am I right now? Like, and you pull out the map and they're going, you're right here. Oh, whoa, how did I get there? And they're like, don't worry, people do this all the time. I'm going to tell you how to get back to where you need to be. And that's the cool thing about working with a financial planner, working with a money coach. We still have this space where we can have someone who can help us reorient because we might not even know that we're off track. They're going the wrong way. And again, I think that comes back to an awareness. But I think that, like you said, with all three of your points, you're sharing information points that people probably don't know that are important. Saving, investing. Like, dude, compounding interest is fascinating. It's such a fascinating topic. Like, I have family members that have a certain amount of money invested. I think it's like over a couple mil, and they don't ever have to do anything again because just the 4% interest every year that they're getting, like that's their safe to withdraw and use, is a ridiculously large amount of money. And they're just like living well. And it's like because they invested and they started young.
And one other thing to kind of touch on here is there needs to be a perspective shift for young professionals, people that are in, like I said, late teens to late 20s about specifically investing and saving for retirement. I want to specifically highlight this because I think there's this misconception that the target should be 2 million or the target should be 1.5 million or whatever it is. And they'll take this 4% safe withdrawal rate and they'll use it for, a value that feels comfortable to them now. It's like, let's say right now I'd feel comfortable retiring on $120,000. Well, that means you have to save $3 million in order to have a 4% safe withdrawal rate that would result in $120,000. That's well and good for 2025. That would make me feel comfortable in 2025. But in 2067, that's going to be a really different number. So if my target is 3 million, in 2067, I'm going to be looking at 3 million and be like, oh my gosh.
Inflation's hit.
I'm not going to be able to pay my bills this year. And I'm hoping that Social Security is still around in 40-something years so that maybe I can get a little bit of government assistance in that, which is not something I'd like to rely upon personally. And so this kind of ties on back to, that first point I made, starting super early, because the earlier you start, the easier it's going to be able to reach those huge goals. I mean, I'm talking about like 7-figure goals. That's what I'm targeting for my retirement in 2067 or whatever it is. And that's achievable because I've started young. In fact, not even that hard. And with the income that I make as a scientist, because I chose a degree field that was necessary and had a great return on retirement. My wife stays home. I'm single income with kids. I'm still going to probably be able to hit that, hopefully. I mean, Lord willing. Obviously, that's 42 years from now or whatever.
Understandably.
So, I mean, I'm not going to, tell people I'm a prophet or something like that. But what I'm really trying to get to is that if you start to recognize that this is important, you start to recognize that there are goals that you need to be shooting for now, man, it is possible. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much student loan debt you have. I don't care what your current income is. As a young professional, someone that's in their late teens to late 20s, you have so much time to, like you said, write that financial ship and get on track. I mean, there is not a single thing that you cannot overcome with that much time. Yeah. And I really mean that. I'll put my eggs in that basket. Not that I'll be a decamillionaire in 40-something years, but I'll put my eggs in that basket. That there's nothing you can overcome with that much time. And so that's what I'm passionate about. It's helping people do that.
Well, and that's beautiful, because I think that whether people are old or young, so often they get to this place of like, wow, how did I get here? And the first thing, my daughter was talking the other day, and I had to pull her aside and go, you know what? Don't worry about that. She was like having her school exams, and she's like, I made this mistake. I'm so dumb. I was like, whoa. You might have made a dumb decision, but you're not dumb. You're very smart. And you have the resources to fix whatever you did that didn't work out. If you made a mistake on math, well, we study more math classes. If you made a mistake in your writing, well, we practice that. You have time and you have the knowledge to fix this. But we have to figure out what it is we need to fix. That's the first and biggest problem, And so we start assessing the problem, start looking at this objectively. And I'm trying to teach her that, staying calm in the midst of everything and figuring out what it is I need to fix. And I think if that's the thing that I would inspire anyone who is a young professional, is to find out what you don't know. Take classes in personal finance. I did a great class from SoFi, the bank, on Coursera. It was a amazingly good class on personal finance. And, I'm sure that there are some financial professionals that would watch that and go, I don't agree with everything in here. Well, you know what? You don't have to. It's still really good, a foundational place to start. And that class is free. It's completely free. No money needed. And certainly they plug their products along the way. But you know what? Telling a kid to get a 401k, a Roth IRA, these are good things. These are good things to tell people to invest in their 401k, to tell people to invest in a Roth IRA, to tell people we've got a savings account that, is a high interest, or, this will pay you well. It has. It's a good thing.
I have a great high yield savings account. I mean, that's a really great product. And there's tons of free resources like that. There's another one by Khan Academy. Khan Academy is typically known for helping people pass their MCAT and whatever. I mean, super useful, but they also have awesome little courses on personal finance. And I listened to a podcast called Choose FI when I first started my personal finance journey. They have a free class as well. It's all about
It's
financial
awesome.
independence and kind of strategies to achieve that. And so, yes, to your point, there's so many free resources, and the value of perpetual learning is not quantifiable. It is perhaps the only way really that you can achieve success, because it's not only staying up to date with what's going on, but it's also keeping your mind sharp enough to be flexible
Yeah.
and adaptable to your situation. It's like, you're always looking at this diamond of personal finance from different facets. So whenever you come across a new situation, one that you're not familiar with, you're able to reach into that bank of data that you've been storing over the course of the years and actually make the wisest, most efficient decision. So important.
Yeah. One of the other things too, and I think I was thinking about this earlier, I mean, even before we got on the call. I yesterday I bought a new pair of cargo pants. I'm loving the fact that cargo pants are coming back into style because I loved my cargo pants back in the day. And I got these pants, and I'm wearing them right now because they're so comfortable, and they are baggy. And for many years, this slimmer fit, fitted jeans thing has been in, and now baggy's coming back in. And it's not necessarily I look like this out of place, guy who's trying too hard a little bit if I wear all baggy. So I'm making my own way. But one of the things that's interesting is my wife and I were talking about fashion yesterday, and I was like, well, I really enjoy this. This reminds me of when I was younger. I dressed like this. And what we got into was that, and then I just started thinking about personal finance with this. No two people are going to have something that looks the same. Your personal financial journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Certainly there are models that would be good to follow. You do not need to be Warren Buffett. Certainly Warren Buffett was unique and special because Warren Buffett's Warren Buffett, but you could be uniquely you. And the idea that I want people to remember is however you want to do it, however, your split between, savings, needs, wants, and other things is going to be unique to you. And one of my friends said, she came on the show and she was like, budgeting always had this scary, like, connotation in her family because it felt so restrictive. But she had this personal trainer that told her, you hit your calorie goal. And then that rest of the time, dude, do whatever you want. As long as you're hitting this goal here, go out and have some Krispy Kreme. Go have that cheesy steak if that's your thing. Like, because you hit your goal. And that's the beauty of, like, this can look unique to you, for you. If you're a car person and you're hitting your goals, but you want that splurge to be your vehicle, well, understand that. Know that. Be smart with it and know that cars are not great assets unless you're doing the Jay Leno thing. But I mean, he's doing his own thing. That's his thing, But be smart with it and be knowledgeable of it. But then at the end of the day, do what works for you. There was one of my favorite celebrities, and for this specific thing, is Christian Bale. First of all, he's a great actor. But the second thing, one of the best, man. Christian Bale's Batman, hands down, I think is one of the greatest Batmans ever. So,
have to agree.
But one of the things with Christian Bale is he drives, I believe it's a 2004 or 2006 Toyota Tacoma. And in an interview, they're like, why do you drive such a not cool old car? And he's like, not cool? Not a good car? It's a Toyota Tacoma. He's like, it's a classic. It's vintage. It is a great vehicle. He's never changed it. Why? Because to him, it's one of the greatest vehicles ever. He loves that truck. He's still driving it. Why? Because it's a good car. It is a great car. It's a great vehicle. They don't go wrong. Toyotas, my friend had a 500,000 mile Toyota, and it just kept going. Why? Because they took care of it. I believe it was a 4Runner, and they were just driving it, and certainly it needed little fixes. One of the things that, I love with Christian Bale, and another is one of my favorites, is Cillian Murphy, from Peaky Blinders and Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy doesn't have social media. He does things his own way. When people are going, do you know you're trending on TikTok right now? He's like, I don't know what that is. I don't even know what trending is, but I hope that's a good thing, and he looks at his co-star. He's like, is that good? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty good. And he's like, okay. You can do things your way. If you are not a book person, my daughter wasn't reading, but she loves Minecraft. So what did I find? I went through all of these books. I bought princess books. I bought science books. I bought space books. But when I bought Minecraft books, it was like fan fiction that was like unauthorized fan fiction, but it was like a whole series. The other day, she texted me while I was at work, Daddy, I just read 130 pages. And I was like, yeah, you did. Because I found the thing that worked for her. Your financial journey doesn't have to look like anyone else, but you have to do it if you want to have good results in the future. And all of us would like to have that stability in the future, whether we realize it now or not. You want it. So find a way that makes it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really ties together the conversation super duper well. I really appreciate that perspective as well. Finding a way to make it fun for yourself is going to be so important, because budgeting can be scary. Saving can be scary. All this stuff can be scary and nerve-wracking. When it comes down to it, you're making really significant decisions about your life. And personal finance is personal. It's why they have that adjective at the beginning of finance. And so there's going to be a specific way that you can organize your budget and your saving and your patterns to make it as doable for you. I'm not going to promise everyone that they'll love it like I do. Like, I'm just a nerd about this stuff. So it just, it gets me going. I'll read those really boring books on personal finance that, kind of like watching paint dry, and I'll like it. So that's me. I'm a unique person. But for every single person listening, there's a unique way that works for them. And discovering that is going to be key. And I think that really this kind of goes to a point where you just need to spend time thinking about this. And I recommend that to any age bracket, but specifically to young people. There are a lot of distractions in the world. I love the fact that Cillian Murphy doesn't have social media. I didn't have social media for the longest time until I started this financial coaching business, because I want to reach people that are in my age demographic. Instagram's the place to do it. LinkedIn's the place to do it. But trying to just set some time aside where you eliminate distractions and you consider for yourself, where am I? How is my money doing right now? And where do I want to go? Is going to be invaluable for you. There's a study that was done that said, I don't remember who did the study. This is not very scientific of me. I think my professors would be so appalled. But I'm just going to, paraphrase it. If you write down your goals, you're going to have a 42% increased chance of accomplishing them.
Yeah.
So if you actually sit down and consider to yourself, what are my financial goals this year? This is such an adequately timed podcast because it's the beginning of the year. It's January 3rd today. What are my specific financial goals this year? And then you come up with some action steps to actually accomplish those. You would be shocked by how much you can progress in a year. It's not going to be instantaneous. It's not going to be in a day. It's not going to be in a week. But over the course of months, you're going to recognize that you have way more control over your money because you're beginning to budget. You're going to see your net worth increase because you're either paying off debt with the excess money that comes out of having a well-organized budget, or you're investing that and you're seeing your net worth, skyrocket in the positive, and, you're going to feel way more confident for your future. And you might recognize that you can be more generous, or you can have a little bit more fun doing what's actually making you happy. Another
Yeah.
thing about personal finance is you can organize it in a way that prioritizes what makes you happy, prioritizes your priorities. You know,
Yeah.
I want to spend money on rock climbing. And so my wife and I decided that we were going to take money out of our dates fund and out of our entertainment fund, and we were going to put that to an annual rock climbing membership at a local gym.
There you
And
go.
that makes us incredibly happy. We can make that decision with confidence because we just looked at what we had and pared down in some places that were lower on the totem pole of our priorities and reallocated that money towards something that made us more happy. That's what you can do. It's super possible. And once you start to rewire your mind to be thinking in those sort of ways, it's actually not that difficult. Just like any muscle that you train, you're going to be able to train your personal finance muscle, start to make decisions that actually make sense for you in your life.
I love that. And it's so true. Like it's about starting. It's about getting the ball rolling and saying, this is something I'm going to do, and focusing on the wins. Last year, I did some great things financially. Last year, I did some really wrong things financially. And the reality is I'm focusing on the wins. And each year you can make a little bit of progress. You can focus on going the right way. And I think that if you can continue that sustainable progress, you'll get there. Now, one of the things I want to say is find a community, find a group of people that can support you and that can motivate you to get there. I think is one of the biggest and most important things I'm going to recommend to anyone. But one of the things, last question was we focus on it and finishing up here. You are a book nerd, and I appreciate that as well. I love that. What are some of your go-to books? If you're going to tell me, which one are your favorites?
Oh, good question. I loved reading The Psychology of Money. I thought that was such a good book. It really digs into the emotional, mental aspect of personal finance. There's a real risk of seeing this game, because it is kind of like a game, purely in a mathematical sense. I'm going to pay off, this debt before this debt because there's a higher interest rate here. And so I'm just going to do it based off of interest rates to make more money. Or I'm going to invest my money because I can get an average of 8.5%. And, this student loan is only 5.5%. So there's an arbitrage there. That is a perfectly adequate decision for someone who is more mathematically motivated than they are emotionally motivated. But there's plenty of people out there that are appalled by debt, that are scared by it. They can't sleep well at night knowing that they have liabilities. And so there's a psychology there that you have to understand in order to make, like I said, the decision that works best for you. Second book that I would recommend to anyone is The Millionaire Mission, just published by Brian Preston, who is the host of the Money Guy Show. That podcast was probably the single most important podcast for my personal finance journey so far. And I love his content, and he just published a book. And so it's a great book. Go read it. Especially if you're starting out, that's going to be a step-by-step guide to how to get your financial life back on track, or simply just start it on the track. And so that's helpful. And then, it's not a book, but I just want to reaffirm what you just said. Having a community that you can talk to about this stuff and bounce things off of is probably even more valuable than a book. I mean, you can talk to a person and you can tell them your ideas and how you're, responding to the ideas that you're learning and what your thoughts are and what you're considering doing. And they can question you and challenge you or affirm you and encourage you. That is so helpful. For me, that's been my wife. She is... I talked to her incessantly about this stuff, and I'm sure it drives her crazy, but she's still willing to listen, which is awesome. And maybe for you, that's a best friend or a community of friends. You just need a sounding board. And I'll throw this out there. I'm going to give my social media and stuff
Please
here,
do.
but I can be that sounding board for any person listening. So yeah, I'll give them real quick. So on LinkedIn, you can find me at Kole Owen. It's Kole with a K, Koleowen. And then on Instagram, it's Unburied Talents _coaching. So Unburied, like you're, digging with a shovel. Talents, like you have like talent show, underscore coaching. And you can message me or DM me. And I love having these conversations. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And I would very much like to have any that are similar to it with any of your listeners. And if they just want to talk about career stuff or coaching stuff or being a parent of a new kid or anything. I mean, I'm open and I want to have those conversations.